You reach down to pet your cat, and for a brief moment, everything feels mutual, warm, understood. Then she turns, walks away, and sits with her back to you like you don't exist. And somewhere in that silence, you wonder, does she actually know who I am? Most people answer that question with a shrug. She loves me in her own weird way. Or the darker version, cats just don't care. We dress it up as personality, as feline independence, as the price we pay for loving an animal that evolved to need no one. But behavioral science tells a completely different story, and it starts not with how your cat feels about you, but with how she categorizes you. Because here's what researchers have confirmed. Your cat does not see you as human. She doesn't place you in the category of person, owner, or even caretaker. To her, you are something else entirely, something older, something that lives in the deepest layer of her neurology, not in her conscious recognition. And once you understand what that something is, the way she looks at you, or doesn't, will never feel the same again. If this kind of science-backed look into your cat's inner world is what you've been missing, subscribe. This channel exists for exactly that. Here's where most people go wrong. They assume that because cats don't come running to the door like dogs, because they don't follow commands, because they stare at the wall at 2 a.m., they must be operating on pure instinct, empty of anything resembling attachment. The popular explanation is almost always some version of, she's using you, food, warmth, shelter, transaction complete. But behavioral neuroscience is not that tidy, and that narrative, the cold, calculating cat, falls apart the moment you look at what actually happens inside a cat's brain in your presence. Researchers studying interspecies attachment have found something striking. When cats interact with their familiar human companions, their oxytocin levels rise. Not dramatically, not like a golden retriever greeting its owner after a week apart, but measurably, consistently, and selectively. The rise doesn't occur with strangers. It doesn't occur with unfamiliar environments. It occurs with you, with your specific scent, your specific voice frequency, your specific behavioral patterns. A study conducted at the University of Lincoln's Animal Behavior Cognition Unit examined how cats respond to what researchers call a secure base effect, a phenomenon previously thought to be limited to human infants and their caregivers. What they found was that cats, unlike dogs, use their human not as a social companion in the traditional sense, but as a fixed point of orientation, a landmark. When stressed, cats in the presence of their owner showed significantly lower cortisol levels than cats with strangers or alone, not because the owner did anything, simply because the owner was there. This is not affection in the way you perform it. This is something neurologically older and more fundamental. Your cat's autonomic nervous system uses your nervous system as a reference point. Your breathing rate, your cortisol profile, your movement patterns, they are data. And her body reads that data constantly, recalibrating her own stress response against yours. Behavioral scientists call this co-regulation. Your cat is not ignoring you. She is monitoring you, in the most precise biological sense of that word. What looks like indifference from the outside is, on the inside, a continuous and sophisticated act of attention. She is simply never needed to make it visible to you, because the monitoring itself is the point. To understand why, you have to go back roughly 10,000 years, to the agricultural revolution, to the moment when Felis sylvestris libica, the small, solitary wild cat of the Near East, began drifting toward human settlements, not because humans domesticated them, because grain attracted rodents, rodents attracted cats, and cats discovered something unprecedented in their evolutionary history, a stable, predictable environment managed by another species. What happened next was not taming, it was a slow, mutual negotiation encoded into DNA. Cats that could tolerate proximity to humans without triggering a stress response survived and reproduced. Cats that could read human behavioral signals, particularly signals of calm, of danger, of routine disruption, thrived. Over millennia, the cats who became our companions were precisely those whose nervous systems had learned to tune in to ours. This is why your cat stares at you when you're anxious before a flight, why she avoids you when you're fighting with someone on the phone, why she appears from nowhere when you cry. She is not psychic. She is the product of 10,000 years of selection for exactly this sensitivity. The cats who couldn't read us didn't survive long enough to become the animals sleeping at the foot of your bed. The ones who did left behind descendants, your cat, wired at a genetic level to treat your emotional state as mission-critical information. You are not her owner. You are her most important environmental signal. And this is where the popular advice starts to unravel. Because if you understand what you actually are to your cat, a neurological anchor, a biological reference point, you begin to see why so many well-meaning interventions fail. People install Feliway diffusers when their cat becomes anxious after a move. They buy puzzle feeders. They adopt a second cat so she won't be lonely. And sometimes these things help at the margins, but feline behaviorists increasingly note that none of these solutions address what's actually missing: you. Not a version of your smell, not a synthetic pheromone approximation of calm, your actual nervous system, present and regulated. Cats whose owners work from home but are chronically stressed, always on calls, always tense, often show higher anxiety markers than cats whose owners are gone for 8 hours but return calm and consistent. The cat is not reacting to your absence. She is reacting to the quality of your presence, to the coherence of your nervous system as a signal. A pheromone diffuser does not have a heart rate. It does not breathe. It cannot co-regulate. And your cat, at a level beneath language, knows the difference. She is not fooled by approximations. She has spent 10,000 years learning to read the real thing. No product, however cleverly designed, can replicate what your regulated, present, consistent self communicates to her nervous system every single day. So what does this mean? Practically, neurologically, poetically, for the animal sitting across from you right now? It means she doesn't see a human. She sees a landscape she has learned to navigate, a living, breathing ecosystem she has mapped with extraordinary precision. When she slow blinks at you, she is not performing affection. She is communicating safety. You are not a threat. This moment is stable. When she presses her forehead into yours, she is not showing warmth. She is exchanging scent data in the most intimate act her species knows. When she sits with her back to you, she is not ignoring you. She is demonstrating the highest trust a predator can offer. I do not need to watch the room because you are watching it for me. You are not her owner. You are not her friend in the human sense of that word. You are something rarer. You are her felt sense of the world being safe enough to rest in. If that changes the way you see her, even slightly, this channel has more where that came from. Subscribe and leave a comment below. When you think about your cat's behavior now, is there a specific moment that suddenly makes more sense? A look, a ritual, a strange habit? What do you see differently today?